Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Gerry Hamilton and CJ Vogel of On Texas Football. This show brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy at the Lowy Law Firm, lowylawfirm.com. We'll talk about Adam a little bit later, but the subject of this video, guys, for state of the program this week, high risers, guys that are moving up the depth chart and or getting and earning the trust of the coaches. We're going to talk about that. Also want to discuss a couple of other topics. One of them is what is upcoming and what's next for the Longhorns. They are off on Wednesdays. Saturday will be their second scrimmage, and it will be more, Gerry and CJ, more of a true scrimmage for the Longhorns. No substituting in and out on a play-by-play basis. It'll be actually true more situationals. You would think that would give some benefit to the offense that was, on the lesser end of what happened this past Saturday. Gerry and CJ, before we get to the biggest camp surprise and all that stuff, you all have anything y'all want to wrap up or tie up from last weekend's scrimmage?
No, I just think it's leading into this week. And I think this weekend is the deciding scrimmage for a lot of guys fighting for a spot in the two deep, CJ. I think this is a big scrimmage. I mean, we're going to talk about some of these positions coming up, but there's a lot of guys fighting in that second, third team world right now that are trying to get a spot on this two deep. And why does that matter? Travel 65 guys to Ohio State. Texas is making some decisions pretty soon on who's traveling with the team, what that two deep is going to look like, and after that two deep, who files in and fills in that 65-man travel group, because everybody wants to make the trip to Ohio State, but everybody's not.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. My biggest thing, and look, I think, Bobby, you mentioned it earlier today on ontexasfootball.com, the offensive line. What will their unit look like in scrimmage 2 versus scrimmage 1? I think one of the more underrated parts of their first scrimmage was the lack of pre-snap penalties. That is something in which, with a brand new unit, Texas obviously was hamstrung by it a year ago, but if you're a brand new unit, making life as simple as possible for you can go a long way, and that's a really big positive to hear that we haven't made a big point of so far out of scrimmage 1. Let's see if it continues in scrimmage 2.
Good point. What I wrote this morning on Texas Football, actually, the first team did not have pre-snap penalties. 2s and 3s did, but again, the ones that are going to trot out there on Saturday, August 30th in Columbus will be the ones. All right, let's go back to the initial point of this video and get going. Biggest camp surprise for you guys. CJ, I'm going to go with you.
I'm starting with CJ Baxter, keeping it in the namesake, and, I could go to a number of freshmen, early enrollees. I could go to a number of transfers. But to hear how advanced and far along CJ Baxter is in his recovery, very much a positive. Again, it goes just so much further than just running the football with Baxter. It's a guy in the locker room that I think a lot of these players respect a lot. His voice carries a lot of weight. And beyond that, he's a guy that does things the right way. So to hear that he's, I don't want to say fully back, but I don't think that there were many limitations with what Texas saw out of him on that first scrimmage. That's a huge plus in that short distance red zone area in which Texas has struggled so much. Provides a body that Texas doesn't otherwise have on their running back roster. So to hear that this is a name that is very close to being fully back to what we saw in 2023, that's a huge, huge surprise for me. And it's a huge bonus for what this team could roll into Columbus with.
Gerry, CJ Baxter, obviously a talking point for this fall camp, but given his serious injury last year and now returning and moving the pile, made a couple cuts that looked good on Saturday, apparently. Your biggest surprise, Baxter, as well, or you want to talk about somebody else?
Ty Anthony Smith. Now, it's not really to me personally, because I saw him a lot in high school and you just knew what he could become. But look, when Sark said budding star at SEC Media Days, one thing I've learned is when Sark gives some praise on that level, it has real meaning. And then he came back Monday and said having a great camp, not good camp, great camp. Saturday, may have played more defensive snaps than anybody else, from what a couple of people told me. And I think here's the other thing. I think he's like going into fall camp or going into the season, the downtime in the summer, and we're talking about this. Anthony Hill's talked about, LaFau's talked about, and Trey Moore's talked about. Ty Anthony Smith he's going to be a good player, but he's kind of the fourth guy. I'm not even sure that's really the case. Like I see this guy playing a lot more snaps than what we thought in the summer, and I think there's two reasons for that. One, he's really good in space, and he's very versatile. They even lined him up a little off the edge Saturday, from what I was told. And then two, I think they're going to want to get Anthony Hill a little more rest this year, so his body is as capable and healthy as it can be late in the season, because he was really beat up towards the end of the year last year because they didn't have somebody to take those snaps and give him help. If Ty Anthony Smith has come that far, I think you can see Texas try to get the snap count down for, not saying Ohio State, but down for Anthony Hill at times this year to keep him as fresh as they can. And that means Ty Anthony Smith's going to be playing a lot of snaps, that combined with when else he'd be playing.
Gerry, you are extremely high on Ty Anthony Smith. I mean, this is not the first time you've mentioned it. I think people need to kind of mentally record that conversation that when you have that, because you haven't let up on that for a number of days, and that's based on what you've been hearing. I want to say this: Cedric Baxter to me is the surprise of camp, just because of the severity of the injury. Right? I mean, nobody expected him to be back. And be able to potentially play against Ohio State at, beyond 5 to 10 carries. I mean, he went after it on Saturday. So I think outside of him, though, mine is going to be somebody a little bit different. And I'm going to go with Parker Livingstone, the wide receiver. And the reason why I say that is because, look, DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo are coming back. They're going to start. Emmett Mosley had 48 catches a year ago at Stanford in 9 games. Now, he's been injured a little bit, but what I think has been so important about Parker Livingstone is in the spring, he took advantage of his opportunities to work with Arch Manning. I mean, if you remember, Parker was the number one receiver in the spring because everybody else was out. Wingo was out. Moore was out with a toe. Mosley wasn't there yet. I think that is going to be the guy, frankly, that surprises most people that haven't seen Parker Livingstone play before. I just feel like he's had a really good fall camp. I do believe that he's one of the 4 in the circle of 4 receivers that Sark and his group are going to trust. Chris Jackson, the other 3, obviously, Wingo, Moore, and Emmett Mosley. But I'm going to go with a surprise, and that's Parker Livingstone. And I want to say it the right way here. It's not that he's overshadowed other people. It's that he's not being overshadowed by a Ryan Wingo, by a DeAndre Moore, who have much more experience than he does. So I want to put that out there. All right, beyond that, I want to talk about some other guys that we've heard behind the scenes that we believe are ascending somewhat. And Gerry, you put out an article on ontexasfootball.com. We'll go over your list. CJ and I have some ones that we want to add. Before we do that, we want to say make sure we say thank you to our sponsor. Our sponsor is Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind and think you might be due compensation, make sure you give Adam and his group a shout over at lowylawfirm.com, and they will give you a free, no strings attached consultation and see whether or not they agree with you. Again, lowylawfirm.com. Adam has been helping injured Texans for 20 plus years. All right, ascending players in camp. Gerry, I'm going to ask you to start. You already mentioned Ty Anthony Smith. That's clear. I mentioned Parker Livingstone. CJ Baxter's on that list because it's a surprise of sorts. What do you think? Name one for you that's been ascending at this point.
Derek Williams for sure. And it's because, one, he had the ACL last year, but this is really the year he should ascend as a player. It's your 3rd year. And the fact that he has come off the ACL well, he had a really strong scrimmage Saturday, by all accounts, including Steve Sarkisian. Like, that was like a consensus thing. And maybe it's because he was coming off the injury, so people were a little more cautious, right? Kind of like Cedric Baxter. But I think his ascension is really big for this team because it allows Texas to use Michael Taff at nickel, think about it, work on it. And then 2, he was the best safety Texas had against the run to start last year. Now, Makuba really came on with his physicality, but they missed Derek Williams when he went down. He is really good against the run. And I think he brings a physicality that they need, especially with Makuba going on to the NFL. So that going into year 3, when you should be really hitting your peak, him and a Jelani McDonald, but the fact that he is ascending coming off the knee is a big one for me, because I think that can change the way Texas works to put their best 5 on the field at defensive back.
I think it's a good point. I would add this. I mean, remember, Texas plays DJ Lagway and John Mateer early.
Yeah.
And that quarterback scramble, somebody like Derek Williams has the size to take those guys on and not give extra. CJ, you have one or two that you want to talk about that are ascending in your opinion?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the big defensive lineman, and it's been Travis Shaw for me. That's been a pleasant surprise, coming off of, a spring in which he was limited. He didn't have much time on the field, and when he was not 100%. To hear that he's been a guy that's turned heads with how, one, big he is, but two, how much effort he's been giving. One, it's a contract year for him, and secondly, look, I think he's seen the competition in the room saying, okay, if I want to be where I need to be by the end of this year, I need to bring it with all of these new faces who are just as hungry as myself. So that is huge, because on top of Cole Brevard, do you rely immediately on a true freshman, Josiah Sharma, with a guy that's 350 pounds? The answer is probably no. And I think Travis Shaw has kind of put his finger on the, the scale there to tilt it back in his own favor. That's a big, big point of emphasis for me as Texas looks to be another very solid year of defense against the run there. Travis Shaw is doing a fine job in my eyes.
I really like that pick, by the way, but I agree 100% on Travis Shaw. What happens when the kid's a 5-star coming out of high school and they're not as good as people think? They're called a bust. Like, North Carolina's fans would say he's a bust, but he still had 55 tackles in 3 years and never played a full season. Right. He's just had injury issues. What if Texas gets the Jermaine Lole season out of him? If they get the Jermaine Lole season out of him, he could be a 3rd round, 4th round draft pick with his talent.
Because he's so much bigger than Lole. Yeah. To your point. I mean, he has NFL size. I mean, this guy's 340 plus.
Yep.
Interestingly, CJ and Gerry, the top 4 we're hearing right now at defensive tackle, Alex January, Murad Watson, they might be on my list of ascending guys. I know for various reasons we may or may not agree with that. And then also Cole Brevard and Travis Shaw. Those seem to be the first 4. I'm going to go a little bit different maybe than you guys. I'm going to say Jordan Washington.
Ooh, I like it.
Because I do think that what he has done is kind of pushed to be that first string guy after missing almost all of spring camp. Now, I say first string, I'm talking about in 12 personnel.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, Jack Injuries, the transfer from Cal, is first string. Spencer Shannon went out with the ones in the first part of practice. But in the second part, Washington went out with the ones and looked, what I'm told, made plays. Didn't just look good, actually made plays. He's also sitting around 260 pounds right now. If he can do that and be an effective inline guy that they can also flex out at times to match with Jack Injuries, I'm just telling you, and I will add this, and this is from the time that we saw him in spring, Gerry, compared to when we saw him in fall camp, he's also reshaped his body a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, he's lost a little bit of the freshman 15 and reapportioned it elsewhere on his body.
Oh, I call it the NIL 15 now. I call it the NIL 15.
The NIL 15? There we go.
You eat a lot better than you did 15 years ago as a college kid.
Yeah. Anybody else you want to mention? Christian Clark, Gerry, you'd put on your list.
Bobby, I want to say the reason I agree with you. Nothing should light the fire under a player more than what happened with Jordan Washington. You're proclaimed to be the starter, starting spring. You get injured. They recruit a guy that's an NFL prospect at your position, and everybody tells you have no chance to beat him out. If that doesn't light a fire under a player, you may have recruited the wrong player.
Yeah.
Jordan Washington's a motivated guy right now, and he's healthy, which helps as well.
Anybody else? I mentioned Christian Clark. That was a guy that you and I talked about. Anybody else that you would say is kind of ascending a little bit overall?
Go ahead, CJ.
I was going to say we're going to sound like we're beating a dead horse here, but Grayson Littleton deserves mention here. Again, every time that it feels like we've asked for practice updates, anytime that we've talked with sources that have seen practice, that's one of the first names mentioned every single time. And Sarkisian's come out and said, we're basically a little surprised by how well he's been acclimating to this level of practice. And look, Bobby, you've had plenty of notes. Gerry, you as well. The way that he goes about practicing in terms of preparation and then getting on the field and competing at the highest level against three guys really that have already put up big time college seasons, have him circled because I think he's going to be one of the top snap getters amongst all freshmen this year.
I'm going to throw a curveball in. How about Malik Muhammad?
As an ascending guy, I mean, he's already been there.
Yeah, but he's creating turnovers.
Yep.
If that carries over to games, because he has one interception in 2 seasons, and he's played a lot. CJ, I don't know how many snaps he's played. I know you have the number. It's a lot. If he starts turning people over, then he becomes a different player. And if that carries over from fall camp to the season, not only does he have a great season for Texas and elevate the Texas team, he elevates himself in the NFL draft.
There's definitely some truth in that. Now, they will pay for turnovers,
but he's got to carry it over to the game, which he has the one
interception his freshman year, even though he was causing them then.
Yeah,
we'll say to your point, Gerry. This is a good point. Last year, people threw at Malik Muhammad or Manny Muhammad because you had Jahdae Barron on the other side. What's going to happen this year when they try to throw at Jalen Gilbo or Kobe Black? We'll see how it goes. I would add one more player to this list, and that's Xavier Filsaime.
Yeah,
I've heard that he has had. I said this earlier this week, but I got a chance to talk to someone. He had a great spring in fall camp. From what I'm being told, there was a chance that he might get overtaken by one of the young guys, Jonah Williams, Zealous Hicks, somebody like that. Apparently that hasn't happened in part because of how hard he's working and how much he's getting after it. And I mentioned him also. It is 17 days away from kickoff, and he is number 17 on defense. Anybody else y'all want to mention right now?
Well, real quick, I want to recap that, right? Derek Williams, Grayson Littleton, Xavier Filsaime, you mentioned Malik Muhammad, Ty Anthony Smith, Travis Shaw. You've got every level of that Texas defense mentioned right there, on top of a majority coming in the secondary, in which there's a lot of unknown in terms of you expected really that front seven to be the strength of this team. If that's the case, in which you got the secondary married with that front seven, you might be looking at another nationally elite ranked defense for the Texas Longhorns. And
there's, what it is too, CJ, there's more room to grow at that position because of the departures. Yep. So I wonder how that impacts our, if it creates an internal bias of our own.
I'm going to lead y'all. I'm going to lead you and Jeff into a later story or a little later video. Matthew Caldwell,
KJ Lacey. I mean, I think that he's had a wonderful fall camp as well. But is it enough to become the backup quarterback over Matthew Caldwell and or Trey Owens? And I think the plan is for KJ Lacey to redshirt. But things change when if you're
playing well.
Yeah, exactly. If that happens, knock on wood. All right, that's going to do it for this week's On Texas Football State of the Program, brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm. If you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, or automobile accident of any kind, make sure you give Adam and the firm a shout over at loweylawfirm.com. UT Law School grad Adam is there for your help, for you and your family. And give him a call. He will offer you a no strings attached free consultation to see if you might be due any compensation, whether you've been hit by an 18-wheeler, an ATV, any moving automobile accident at all. Again, loweylawfirm.com. All right, guys. As Gerry actually succinctly mentioned, later video coming up for us will be about the quarterbacks. Jeff Howe and I are going to take what we know and what we've learned in the last few days about the backup quarterback situation, even talk a little bit about what we're hearing about Arch a little later today. Before we even go there, I want to say one last thing. Make sure you check out our new gear store. I'm wearing the new hat. We got hats there. We got new mugs for coffee and football as well. Shop.ontexasfootball.com. Get your gear before the season starts. You can also follow that QR code and go directly to the site, shop.ontexasfootball.com. All right, guys, we'll see y'all again later. Make sure you check us out on the message boards as well. We got some recruiting news going as well as team news. The team is off of practice today, scrimmage on Saturday. For Gerry Hamilton, CJ Vogel, as well as our producer, Matt Hudson, I'm Bobby Burton. Hook 'em horns.